Welcome to the Lawrence Branch NAACP Commission Candidate Forum. My name is Ursula Miner. I'm president of the Lawrence Branch NAACP. I want to give a special thank you to the League of Women Voters of Lawrence and Douglas County for the support of our forums. Members of the Lawrence Branch NAACP and the League of Women Voters have been working side by side to register voters in our high schools and at community events for years. This partnership is very compatible since both our organizations are nonpartisan. Our political activities are focused on voter registration, voter education, and most importantly, voter turnout at all the polls. Thanks also to the members of the NAACP Political Action Committee who made the arrangements for today's forum. Now let's review this afternoon's format for our candidates and audience. The questions I will ask were developed by NAACP members. Each candidate received the questions in advance. Each candidate will have a specific amount of time to answer the questions. Our timekeeper will let each candidate know when there is 15 seconds left to respond, and then when time is up. We ask respectfully that the candidates stay within the time allotted for each question. I will rotate who gives the first answer of each question. Then the next person will answer, and so on. The seating arrangement we have today was determined randomly by drawing names. There will be no additional questions from the audience. Instead, we have asked the candidates to stay after for formal question and answering and talking to the people. The NAACP cannot endorse candidates, but the candidates are free to share campaign materials, seek volunteers, and answer additional questions. Now let me introduce our Lawrence City Commission candidates in order as seated. Courtney Shipley, Brad Feekledye, Justine Burton, Sherry Easter, who is representing Mike Deaver, Amber Sellers, Chris Flowers, and Dustin Stumblingbear. Joshua Olafson informed us yesterday afternoon that he will not be able to be here. So let's begin with our first question. We'll start with Courtney Shipley. Why are you running for City Commission, and how do you plan to address your priorities?
First of all, thank you to the NAACP and the League of Women Voters. We don't want to waste time with that, but or play the thank you game, which I'm sure we all will. My motivation for running for City Commission has not changed. I want to help maintain a place where the next generation want to live, that provides opportunities, and that they can afford to live. The priorities I fight for aren't mine, they're yours. Firstly, we have a strategic plan built by this community. We should continue to move towards our goals, which are driven by data. And in the past, we've allowed special interests to drive our actions, chasing butterflies and shiny new assets that we can't afford in the long run. It is important to understand how the commission works. We need 3 people to agree to get something done. For any of us to be successful for you, you need to elect a commissioners who cultivate and maintain working relationships with other commissioners, in spite of ideological or personal differences. Open channels of communication is how I get things done for you.
Next we have Brad Feekledye.
Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you to the NAACP for putting this on. And just want to take a second to remember Hank Booth. I've been doing lots of campaigns, been involved for a long time, and it's really hard to imagine a campaign without Hank Booth being part of it. So it's going to be a sad day, and will certainly change the whole complexion of the way we communicate some of our ideas on KLWN. So miss him. Why am I running? It's been a pleasure to serve. Courtney and I ran together 4 years ago, and we had all sorts of reasons why we ran, and we had a lot of plans. And then about 4 months later, COVID hit, I served as mayor in my second year, and I had 0 meetings in person that entire time. But a lot of the goals we had and a lot of the ideas we had when I ran 4 years ago, we did not get to accomplish, and the world's changed quite a bit. So the main reason I'm running again is to complete some of those goals. As Courtney said, one is the strategic plan. We've worked hard on that, it's your plan, and it's something we want to put into place, and we need to get it into action. Second, I'm chairing the Development Code Committee, where we write the development code from start to finish. And I do think, when I look back 20 years from now, and they say, what's the most important thing you did? I think it'll be updating the development code. It's long overdue. I think it'll affect so many issues, from affordable housing, to business growth, to growth in general. I just think it has wide-ranging plans. Thank you.
Next, we have Justine Burton.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Hello?
You gotta eat the mic.
Okay. Oh, you gotta eat it.
Not literally, but.
Okay, my name is Justine Burton, and the reason I'm running is because I'd like to see more focus on Lawrence as a whole, not just as a section. And what I mean by that is we have 4 directions in Lawrence, and I'd like to see each direction, North Lawrence, East Lawrence, I'd like to see those areas built up. We're a community, not separate from each other, but as a whole for each other. So being able to figure out how we can do that as Lawrence, and I look at it as Lawrence, coming into Lawrence, I feel that people should have that welcoming feeling. I don't see that here in Lawrence as far as when a person comes in. So that's something that I'm focusing on. Also our homeless population, what is that we can do for them, and how can we at some point be able to get some type of more funding, more housing for the homeless as well. And again, with that being to make sure that our communities, our businesses are all protected, not doing a knee-jerk reaction when we get a crisis, but being able to discuss what steps need to be taken in order to get that done. I'm done.
Thank you. Next, we have Sherry Easter, representing Mike Dever.
My name is Beth Easter, representing Mike Dever. I'm going to be reading his words directly, so this will be coming from him. So please accept my apologies for not being present for today's important candidate forum due to an out-of-state family wedding. I'm disappointed to not be here in person. I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts with the group today, but also welcome any specific questions on campaign-related issues or thoughts in the future. I believe communication is the key to successful relationships between elected officials and the voters. I want to encourage all of you to reach out and follow up with contact information, and I will follow up with you as soon as possible. Why are you running for City Commission? I'm running for City Commission again after serving 8 years previously between 2007 and 2015. Because I believe the city needs the leadership and experience acquired during my previous years of service. Our community is at a crossroads as it relates to the future path we must take to ensure Lawrence can continue to grow and prosper for all of our residents. Public perception of downtown Lawrence is at a recent all-time low. Our public schools are closing due to poor planning and lack of determination to invest in our older neighborhoods. New home construction is at its slowest pace in many years, and low and middle income buyers are priced out of home ownership in Lawrence due to a variety of bureaucratic and self-inflicted reasons. One of the most motivating factors as to why I want to be your city commissioner again is that I believe our city needs to change the way we are handling the needs of our unhoused population and the processes and transparency which it shares its future plans within the community. If elected, I would dig deeply into the existing plans and processes in place, forge closer relationships with all of the partners involved, and help create a real vision for what Lawrence wants to be as a community.
Perfect.
Thank you. Next, we have Amber Sellers.
Hey, I thought I'd be the first one to get the ding. So good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here in protocol having been established. It's a pleasure and look forward to the rest of this campaign journey. When I ran in 2021, I ran with the motto, new leadership for a better Lawrence. And I stick by that to this day in 2023. In 2023, I celebrate over 20 years of professional work that has seen me do research, examine public policy, and really dive deeply into the relationship of state government and its impact on local government. And I've done that across the state, from Southwest Kansas to South Central Kansas to Northeast Kansas, and now making Lawrence my forever home. I truly believe that whatever we do as a commission, that it needs to be people-centered. People need to be first in policy and in governance. We need to make sure that the individuals in our community can see themselves represented, not just by ethnicity, but by culture, by values, by understanding of what it means to be collective in the work that we do. That's what a new leadership is for a better Lawrence. How we accomplish that is through transformative infrastructure. We know roads and bridges are the groundwork and the basework of things. We know we need that. We need clean water to make things go. But there's a human aspect, a social aspect that often gets put on the wayside that we don't address when it comes to infrastructure. Without roads and bridges, and without people, things don't go. Have people centered in this. Comprehensive housing. We need to build capacity to execute a plan that was set forth in our strategic plan to accomplish. And we're getting towards that. But that in order for us to build up that capacity, we need to understand the relationship of our funding with state funding as well as with federal funding. And we need to look at operational economic development. Many of our small business areas are being left behind, and we need to be intentional about how we address that. We need to operationalize success, as a friend said, through policy, people, program, and pedagogy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Chris Flowers.
Hi, I'm Chris Flowers. I'm running because regardless of what they say, they make themselves seem a lot more progressive than they are. Let me tell you something about our commission. I think it was in May, there was a proclamation honoring the police. A citizen wanted to make public comment about that proclamation, a citizen that criticizes the police, and this commission did not let that citizen speak. They shut him down. They claimed you cannot make public comment on a proclamation. Yet weeks earlier, they allowed a Republican to make public comment on a proclamation about autism awareness, in which the Republican made claims about vaccines causing children to have autism, and I believe made some kind of ridiculous claim that in the near future, half of the children in America will be born with autism. So that's your commission. Look it up. I'll be providing details in the future. I mean, it's on video. This isn't stuff I'm making up. This is stuff they've done. So that's why I'm running. Also, while I'm running, I want to also talk about our police. There's that transsexual bill that I don't like. I hate it. And I've been advocating we get rid of our law against topless women. The police say, well, we don't prosecute it. Yet I did an opens record request, and on August 5th, 2021, less than 2 years ago, the police issued a citation for a woman being topless. So yes, they're still issuing tickets. So this is why I'm running, because it's words, it's not actions. I'm going to provide actions. I'm going to provide a progressive voice for Lawrence. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dustin Stumblingbear.
Hello everybody, I am Dustin Stumblingbear, and I have lived in Lawrence for the last 15 years, but 20 years overall of my life, and I have brought up in the Kiowa tradition that we serve our community for as long as we are capable. I once did that in the military service, did my time there, got out due to injuries, settled here after going to KU, and have continued to serve in my community by being on a board of directors, Independence Inc., for 6 years. I stepped off due to a rule in our bylaws. I work with CERT now, a community emergency response team, being trained and also helping others learn the skills necessary to help themselves in an emergency. And I attend a lot of public meetings like the outreach meeting that's coming up Monday evening. I feel like I have the focus and the desire to serve all of Lawrence, to not only help others thrive as I have thrived, but also to help everyone, help each other step up. This community made me to the person I am today, to help me be strong, be firm, be confident that I can stand and sit here in front of you and talk to all of you in this manner and run for this office. And I want to be able to help other people have that opportunity by supporting our unhoused population through more initiatives in getting them from unhoused to housed, helping our individuals across this community who need affordable housing. This is for all income levels, for all family sizes, and yes, being single is a type of family. So we need to provide affordable housing for all of these individuals so that we can continue to capitalize on what's coming to this region, such as the Panasonic battery plant. And also, hopefully, be able to draw on younger families so that we can quit the hemorrhaging that's happening to our local school district. I am Dustin Stumlingbear. Please vote for me in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 2. What are your thoughts about the Police Review Board? We are starting with Brad Finkeldye.
Thank you. As most of you probably know, that we are going through a process to reimagine our Police Review Board, and so certainly I support that process. Obviously, there's some listening sessions coming up, and in those listening sessions, we're going to be hearing from the community on what they see the Police Review Board be. And so I guess I'm going to withhold some of my opinions till I hear what we get from those listening sessions and from the committee we appointed to look at that. But certainly I'm glad we're in that process and look forward to bringing that to a resolution and having a police review board that everyone in the city is proud of, that really improves the trust in our police department, between our community and the department.
Next, we have Justine Burton.
As far as the police review board, I believe that if it's independent of the police department, where they're able to make their own decisions about how they report, things reported, would be a good thing. Actually, I'm not that familiar with it, but I think it would be something that Lawrence needs. In the past, what I've seen from the police department, we do need that balance as far as the police and the public, making sure that we do have open dialogue and make sure that each person on the police force also is able to be held accountable.
Thank you. Next, we have Beth Easter.
Previously, when faced with the question of the formation of a police review board while serving on the city commission, I was persuaded by the chief that the administration could handle the issues better than the citizens. I was open to the idea of a review board because I believe that the community is better when the public have input on important decisions. Law enforcement administration is sometimes difficult, but transparent operations are important when dealing with many difficulties. If elected, I'm open to any consideration of citizens' involvement at certain levels, but not a powerless body that wastes valuable time and resources. I would meet with the police chief and other sworn officers to discuss the current situation and gather input from current participants on the Community Police Review Board to understand its value given the current narrow focus and lack of complaints to resolve. After input from the proper stakeholders, I would be in a better position to comment more comprehensively.
Next, we have Amber Sellers.
So it's no surprise to this community that we've struggled with the current ordinance of our CPRB. And I've always stated, since this was a topic 2 years ago when I ran, that the CPRB is one aspect of a large community policing public safety ecosystem. So when you go through a plan, do, study, act cycle, you gotta have a process. We started that process when we had the Citygate report. The Citygate report called on a work group, and a work group to incorporate all aspects of community policing, which also includes the CPRB. As a member of the National League of Cities Caucus of Black Local Electeds, we took on the agenda of See Black, which is safety, education, and economic development. And public safety is key to that. And we know that cities across the country are looking at their CPRBs. So until we have a community policing plan that incorporates all voices and can map out a CPRB that has the authority that the people desire, this will continue to cycle through and we will continue to fail.
Thank you. Next we have Chris Flowers.
Yeah, our police review board's a joke. They have not reviewed a single case, I don't think. I think the only case they reviewed turned out to be a fake case turned in by the police themselves. And they didn't, the only reason they found out is it came up during discussion. That's when the police chief told them, hey, that case wasn't actual, it was just for practice. If it was actually for practice, wouldn't he have told them right after they did it? It's funny that that case showed up when there was public outcry that the review board wasn't reviewing cases. And they've had 2 years, and we still don't have a police review board that's actually reviewing cases. So, I mean, it's once again words, not actions. Actions, it's easy. Make a review board that they can review cases and not leave it up to the police to review cases themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Dustin Stumbling Bear.
So from the inception, many in the community really, I like the idea of the CPRB. When it became reality, the toothless nature of this board was realized by a lot in the community, and a lot of us have been frustrated since then. I have been watching the police work group meetings, and I feel very confident that we're making some positive steps forward as a community. The community members are a part of this, the police are a part of this, the consultants are helping the community members really guide these conversations. And so I am really excited for the public input meeting Monday night, considering all of the impassioned pleas I've heard from individuals across this community for the past several years. I expect the Connery building to be absolutely packed Monday evening. And I look forward to the wonderful conversations we are going to have as a community going forward regarding community policing. Thank you.
I'll be perhaps more simple and direct. We should let the current work group and board go ahead and do their work. No one can deny that it's been a fraught process, but I don't believe that any of the work that any of the members of the public have done has been wasted. There has been a great deal of investment in research and time, and that is not a waste. I'm confident in individuals who come forward and do this free volunteer work. They know what they want to see in their community. I do, I think we all want to see a functional board, which it has not been. If they would like to broaden what they look at, not just the ordinance, but other things, we've left that available to them. They can decide that. And again, while it has been a long road, even before any of us were involved, what it shows is the commitment our community has to engagement and staying engaged and not letting go of something that the community wants.
Next we'll go to question number 3. How would you balance the interest of unhoused individuals with community and business interest? We'll start with Justine Burton.
Well, I believe we have to take care of both, specifically our businesses, when it comes to being able to, here we go again. When it comes to the care of our businesses, when somebody comes into my house, I have rules that they have to follow. And it should be the same thing with some of these individuals that do not have housing. You see them all over. You see people all over town, and but being able to give them direction, get the mental health services and stuff that they need would be the best thing. But I also want to make sure that businesses are put first, that they are being respected and being cared for. That's the primary thing, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Beth Easter, who is representing Mike Dever, who could not be here.
Unhoused individuals, either by circumstance or choice, have demanded a statistically disproportionate quantity of resources from our community compared to those living on the margins, temporary or subsidized housing. Our community does not have the financial, emotional, or political resources to continue on the current path. Leadership and vision, along with a firm policy and transparent procedures to handle the existing and daily input of the unhoused must be undertaken first. Our community also needs to understand that drug and mental health issues are the largest problem we face with the unhoused who refuse institutional services or suitable care. Once the proper partnerships have been established and the community and programs providing assistance aligned, I believe that balance would be established without further tax base erosion from the lack of new tax input and jobs.
Thank you. Next, we have Amber Sellers.
Yeah, real quick, in that statement that Beth made, while the majority of individuals who are unhoused may have disabilities or suffer from mental behavioral health, they don't make up the majority. 19% of individuals who are unhoused are considered chronically unhoused. The majority of individuals in our community who are unhoused are temporary, less than 6 months. So we can't conflate numbers because that's how we get these false narratives. And neither should we criminalize social failures that don't create positive outcomes. So this question kind of melded together two things that are competing values that don't have to do with one or the other. What it does have to deal with is that the NIMBY that we've been dealing with in the backyard is now in our front yard, and now that's why everyone is concerned about this. The good news is, housing policies have never been oriented around ensuring affordable and accessible housing for all. That's going to change now. And in addition, our country and our state needs to start investing back into mental and social services. That starts with us requiring state support and additional capacity. This issue did not come overnight. It's not going to start, so we're not going to solve it overnight.
Thank you. Next, we have Chris Flowers.
Yeah, maybe I misread the question, but I kind of didn't like how it's worded in that, let me find it. How would you balance the interest of unhoused individuals with the community? But my answer is the needs of the unhoused are the needs of the community. People not wanting homeless in their neighborhood aren't the needs of the neighborhood. It's the need of people not wanting homeless in their neighborhoods. So that's my response to balancing the needs of the community with the homeless. As far as businesses, I will say this up front. I will not crack down on panhandling. I believe, I'm not sure, I believe the Supreme Court has said that's constitutional protected speech. I'm not going to try to find loopholes to shut down free speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dustin Stumbling Bear.
So again, this was spoken to by Amber Sellers. Our unhoused population is very diverse. It's elderly people, it's people with families, it's individuals, it is people who have mental health issues, it is people with disabilities, it is everyone in this community. We all can sit on the verge of becoming unhoused very quickly. And that's what's happened with some of these individuals due to the pandemic and due to rapid inflation. So this comes back to affordable housing in our community, and we need to provide it for all income levels and all families. And when these individuals are able to have housing, they have financial stability and security. And if we can get them into the Tenants to Homeowners program, they build equity. Now they can buy homes on the market value with the equity they built through Tenants to Homeowners. Tenants to Homeowners homes then stay affordable. That's part of the program and how it functions. And thus we balance our interest of the unhoused with the community and the business owners. Not businesses. Businesses are not people, and I won't ever refer to them as such. Thank you.
Next, we will have Courtney Shipley.
I actually thought this was a well-worded question because it did include balance, and that's really what is at issue. One thing we've lacked in some spaces, has been mentioned by others, is clear boundaries and expectations. And I think, what we've come up against is we have a reasonable expectation of behavior in public spaces, but we also can't criminalize poverty. And I appreciate other commissioners mentioning that. We can't arrest people for looking homeless downtown. Believe me, we've been asked over and over. As your commissioners, believe me, you would be astonished at the things we're asked to do. Before we can end the camping in every park in town, which must end, we need to build our capacity in the near term, and then kindly ask people to remove to those spaces. There will be boundaries, safety restrictions, and I think it's a good idea for this community. It won't be popular for me to throw this out because people have avoided talking about it, to discuss residency requirements. I am fully aware of how that's problematic when people don't have addresses, but the Lawrence taxpayer cannot continue to shoulder the burden for other communities around us.
Thank you. Next we have Brad Beagledy.
Going last, you always have great answers before you, and certainly agree with me that the statements made. When I think about interests, I would certainly talk about interests of institutions, and we talk about policy. So for example, some people would say that when we passed the social income protections, were we pitting the interest of homeless versus businesses? But I think that is an example of institution and making the policy for our city of where our priorities are. I think when you talk about it at the individual level, as some of the speakers here have said before me, individual interests, just like constitutional rights, are completely different on a person-by-person basis. And when we talk about, again, I think it is unfair to say the unhoused, just like it is as a collective group, just like it is to say that all businesses are alike, all unhoused are individuals, and we should treat them as such.
Thank you. Next we will go to question number 4. What are the barriers for Lawrence being able to establish a living wage? We will start with Beth Easter, who's standing in for Mike Dever.
I believe that the city of Lawrence is limited in its capacity to manifest great change unless we have the jobs and careers people want in Lawrence. Typically, as a commissioner, we followed Ordinance 7706 when awarding any tax abatements, which addresses this issue. While I was on the city commission, we awarded incentives to 3 companies, Amar Garage Doors, Grandstand, and Sunlight, producing hundreds of living wage jobs. What the city must do is focus with a sense of urgency and a list of incentives to stimulate the construction of more diverse and affordable housing in our community. We also need more jobs so that the local workforce can stay in Lawrence and lower their cost of living further while investing in our community. For me, a living wage and good benefits is a minimum expectation of any company that is seeking incentives. I believe we should be targeting industries like technology and advanced manufacturing that pay well above a living wage.
Thank you. Next we have Amber Sellers.
For every well-paid job, there's someone that has to clean the streets, serve the food, and watch the children. So the reason why we are stifled by our ability to address a living wage on a local level is because there's state preemption. So there's state law that says we can't do it. And state law also says we can't fight on a local level paid family leave, inclusionary zoning, firearms, rent control, and work wages. So commissioners need to know that. That's what impedes us from being able to do that on a local level. Companies have the policy influence to leverage societal changes when it comes to a living wage. As it stands right now, a living wage in Lawrence is $16.04. That would prevent a person from being income burdened. So increasing housing won't solve our economic injustice. Wage reform to the middle class is needed, and we can't subsidize this through poverty wages. So it starts with our businesses, because right now, state law tells us that we can't do it.
Thank you. Next we have Chris Flowers.
Yeah, Commissioner Sellers is completely right about state law. One thing we can do though, is if you go to the city's website and look at their job openings, there are plenty of jobs that are paying less than $16 an hour. So here's what I don't understand. We can give out tax benefits, we can give out incentives for companies to come here and create living wage jobs for us, but we can't use any of that money to pay our lowest paid employees a living wage. I mean, if we want to create a living wage, I say it starts with ourselves, and if I am elected, I will fight. Because last time I ran, I fought, and I said I will fight to make sure all our jobs pay a living wage. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dustin Stumbley-Bear.
A living wage depends upon the individual and the situation. A single individual, according to the MIT living wage calculator, $16.04 in the city of Lawrence. You add a child to that individual, a living wage becomes $33.54. You add 2 children, it exceeds $53. That's a single adult. You add in families, married couples, the living wage changes again. Again, I agree, Amber Sellers is correct in saying that state law preempts us from being able to set a living wage ordinance, but this again, in my opinion, rolls back to affordable housing. Housing is the biggest part of what allows a living wage to be a living wage, and we need to find a way to leverage our programs in town that have provided actual affordable housing in the last several years and continue to put money into those programs, because that's the only way we're going to address this. It's the only way people are going to have housing that they can afford to live in and afford all the other amenities and utilities that they're going to have to pay. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Courtney Shipley.
I never get tired of dudes telling Amber she's right. Yeah, my answer, of course, as many others, has been the Kansas legislature, for one, is what's in our way, what our obstacle is. I haven't heard any new pushes recently, so if there's a new group that wants to focus on this, I'm happy to hear from them. So instead, I'm going to kind of pivot. Something I think is really important that you all need to understand is that we are now working on the budget and the capital improvement plan. That is arguably the most important thing that we do as your commission every year. It affects all our long-term and short-term viability. Our critical infrastructure was long neglected by past commissions. Those chickens have come home to roost and laid eggs all over us now. And so I think you should look for commissioners who can make hard financial decisions, not based on whims or garner approval from special interest groups. We have to think about how to pay 20 or 30 years from now, just not today.
Thank you. Next, we have Brand Finkeldine.
Thank you, because we all preempted by state law from doing it directly. I do think we have to do it indirectly, and we do that several ways through our economic development policy. We do that through paying our own employees and through the budget process. But I also think the economy itself drives that. We've seen some of that through COVID, and certainly some of our service jobs. And bleeding over into number 5, which is the impact of Panasonic, I think the impact of Panasonic is going to be to drive wages up. When we add that many jobs that close to Lawrence, I think you're going to see wages go up across the board, and I think that's going to be a great thing for the workers and the citizens of Lawrence.
Thank you. Next, we have Justine Burton.
I would say, we have a lot of fast food restaurants around here. And I think if we were able to find, like I said, be able to get more technology jobs in here, on those jobs, when you have those jobs, have on-job training for people that actually always don't have a college education. And that's kind of what I look at, that's kind of what I'm looking at, those people that do want to work but don't have a college degree, has a high school diploma. Being able to, when you have businesses come in, I would say, they have to have at least a minimum of $16 to $17 an hour I'd say $17 an hour in order for somebody to be able to live on, so yeah.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to question number 5. What is your understanding of how the Panasonic plant will or could affect Lawrence? We will start with Amber Sellers.
Okay. So, just for context, this Panasonic plan, the Panasonic project is actually the largest economic development project in the history of this state. So if someone tells you they got it figured out, they're lying to you. My uncle is currently a union electrician that's working on the Meta plant in Illinois. They're already hearing noise about Panasonic. What they're scared about is that the wages are going to be low, and that there's going to be an infight between those working on the plant competing with bringing people into the plant to work as it relates to housing and that infrastructure. So this is going to take a regional approach. Is there going to be benefit? Of course there's going to be benefit. There's going to be economic development spillover for the region, for Johnson County, for Douglas County, and the communities around that. We would be foolish to think that it isn't. The thing is that we have to be solid in our policies and our incentives and what that's going to look like and how we plan for it. So this isn't easy work. It's going to take collective, comprehensive work, and we're just getting started.
Thank you. Next, we have Chris Flowers.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't think anyone really does know. I do know that we're going to need housing, I think. I think that's something we're definitely going to need to be working on. And when talking about housing, creating new housing, this past year, there was, I believe, a duplex project in West Lawrence over by Castle, and yet Commissioner Sellers and Commissioner Shipley voted it down. So how are we gonna get affordable housing when our current commissioners are keeping housing from being built in their neighborhoods? Like, that's one of our biggest problems is commissioners being NIMBYs and voting down projects that solve the problem they say they're trying to fight against. So I guess we need more affordable housing. Thank you.
Next, we have Justin Stumbly-Bear.
So we are going to need the housing, period. 4,000 jobs to the Panasonic plant. There's supposedly 2,000 auxiliary jobs. Grocery workers, gas station attendants, hotel workers, go on and name it. School district workers. And if we don't have housing for any of these people in our community, we do not capitalize, period. We don't gain any of the economic advantage. We don't gain the wage increase if we don't have more places for people to afford to live in this town, commensurate with their income levels and in line with their family sizes. I'm going to keep saying this over and over again because it is our biggest issue right now. We lack housing stock. We lack housing stock for everyone of every income level. And if we don't have that, at no point will we be able to draw in any of those jobs, any of those people, any of those wages related to the Panasonic plant. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Courtney Shipley.
The main work so far has been between the city and its partners, most notably the chamber, in identifying suppliers we could get to come in and build the secondary, tertiary factories of suppliers that are needed for DeSoto. That would be, I think, to me, the most important thing for us economically. We can talk about the housing shortage. That's not the question. We know from, or we've been told, even by the chamber's own consultant and the school board consultant, that the housing won't change in the immediate, in the next 2 years, I think is what they said, in terms of housing. It might attract some higher price point engineers and such, but I think we really need to focus on how we can get jobs in the spaces, and the other consequence will be moving eastward in areas we had not anticipated previously.
Thank you. Next, we have Brad Finkeldye.
I think the impact of the Panasonic plant is going to be very good for the community. Obviously, I believe, as I mentioned in the previous answer, that Panasonic believes 75% of their workers will come from folks living within 75 miles of the plant, which means they're going to be attracting people who are currently working in other locations. They'll be doing that primarily by paying high wages, which will open up jobs in other locations that should drive wages up, which I think will be good for the entire community. Obviously, for those who are going to live in the, move to town, move to the area for those jobs, affordable housing is an issue, housing in general is an issue, and certainly we're going to address that. But overall, I believe it's going to have a ripple effect. The state's already hearing about other manufacturers who want to come and locate close to the Panasonic plant. We've certainly heard of folks from around the country saying, why did Panasonic pick the Northeast Kansas, and what are we missing? Why should we be there too?
Thank you. Next, we have Justine Burton.
Okay, so Panasonic coming in, and we're saying we have to have housing. Where's this housing going? Are you going to continue to build west? Are you going to try to go east? Because it seems like every time they build it, everything goes out west. And that, for me, I'm looking at how it here is creating, in my opinion, a food desert, especially on the east side and the north side. So that's what I'm saying. Everybody talks about this area, but nobody seems to want to take on the east or the north area. And those are the places that actually need to have homes built and grocery stores.
Thank you. Next, we have Beth Easter, representing Mike Dever.
As an environmental and building consultant, I travel to other cities regularly and have an opportunity to see the impact large-scale projects have on their host communities. Just last week, I drove by the new battery plant in Elizabethtown, Kentucky, where Ford has had a vehicle plant for many years and is now building its own EV battery plant. I was shocked by the scale of the half-built facility that will occupy over 2 square miles. It is difficult to appreciate the size of this facility, let alone the impact it will have on the new hometown. With that said, I do not believe Lawrence is ready to reap the almost certain external benefits of such a golden opportunity. We lack the existing housing on almost all of the price spectrum and have few buildable lots and subdivisions in the Lawrence School District. The city must improve its quality and speed of service related to planning and development services. And the City Commission needs to be more open to annexation, infill with subsidies and densification of the core of our community now, or the new residents will live elsewhere and we will not benefit as we should.
Thank you. What would you like to say in closing? We will start with Chris Flowers.
Yeah, in closing, I'd like to talk about something else I'm very passionate about, and that's decriminalizing magic mushrooms. I don't know if y'all are aware of this, but the research is showing that psychedelic therapy is helping a lot of veterans with PTSD. PSD, yeah, I get them mixed up sometimes. But I mean, it's not just veterans, it's other people. And I'll be quite honest, I've started tripping this past year, and I've quit drinking. I've drank maybe twice this year. I feel great the next day, and I really would like to talk to anyone about this, and I will fight to decriminalizing magic mushrooms, and also see me afterwards because I got Delta edibles. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Dustin Stumbling Bear.
I love Lawrence. Just can't beat that, man. Just can't beat who we are. And that's exactly why I'm running. This is my third rodeo. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to lose. I'm going to win. And I'm going to keep being here. Regardless of how this campaign stops or turns out for me, I'm going to stay active. You're going to keep hearing from me. You're going to keep seeing me because I'm going to stay active. And I'm going to stay on these issues. Because when I ran in 2017, the issues I ran on, even though I lost, became policy. So obviously I'm on the right track. Thank you.
Next, we have Courtney Shipley.
Lawrence is doing hard work. We are tackling issues that other cities won't. Believe it or not, other cities admire many of the things we are tackling. We have a lot to be grateful for, and the work must continue. American politics does not reward calm or thoughtful or practical moves. American politics rewards thoughtless criticism, it rewards extremity and overreaction, and monetizes it even. Lawrence voters know better. We need to stay focused. The past, financial and cultural, haunts us now, and we cannot afford to go back to unsustainable policies and patterns that bow to special interests at great cost to the rest of this community.
Thank you. Next, we have Brant Finkeldye.
Thank you all for being here today, and thank you for participating. I think it's an important election coming forward. You know, again, I'm running to try to finish some of the work we started 4 years ago. Things like fully implementing the strategic plan and emphasizing it into our budget, finishing the rewrite of the development code, expanding our housing stock, growing businesses, and working with the unhoused. We have made progress on all of those issues, but we have a long way to go, and I look forward to continuing that work for the next 4 years.
Thank you. Next, we have Justine Burton.
I would like to see more inclusion. I'd like to see more of the community getting involved, standing up for our community. Like I said, we have 4 directions of our community, and I'd like to see all those improved, especially, like I said, and I'm going to emphasize again, North Lawrence and East Lawrence. Those are areas that are viable, they are mature, and they need to be recognized as much as West Lawrence or any other part of the town, especially because they are entries to Lawrence. And I think emphasis should be made there as for when people are coming in to see Lawrence. We talk about Lawrence as great. All of Lawrence has to be great, not just portions.
I want to take the opportunity to thank all of you for attending today and for listening to my thoughts related to the current campaign. As a former elected official, I know what job I'm running for, and I know how to do it effectively. I want the commission to be a serious body who takes the work of the people and transparency seriously. Administration has ignored the most important parts of running the government and focused too much time and resources being distracted and without a plan. I understand the complexity of the issues related to the unhoused population and the lack of housing for all. I will commit my full attention, ability, and resources to improving the life, safety, and stability of all residents, while working with other commissioners to manifest real change in our community. I would appreciate your vote on August 1st to help make that commitment a reality.
Yes, thank you NAACP for kicking off the campaign season with this candidate forum. I want to take a point of personal privilege because I said this 2 years ago during the same NAACP meeting when a sitting commissioner said the same thing about, oh my, I've been on the commission this long, I've been on the commission this long. Not all good is gold. Leadership comes in many different ways. And when we preface our conversation with that, and it's no disrespect to me sitting as a current commissioner, former commissioners, and current commissioners. But when you start out, we all have experience in different ways. We all have life experiences, leadership experiences, that if we are not using that and energizing that, then we have a divested community and they're not involved. So I could say a lot of things, but if we're not looking at individuals and what they're bringing to the table, it's not about how long you've been on this commission. It's about what you bring to the work. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'd like to thank Courtney Shipley, Brant Finkeldye, Justine Burton, Beth Easter representing Mike Dever, Amber Sellers, Chris Flowers, and Dustin Stumlingbear for participating in our forum today. Thank you.